Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joel Wise. I am a workplace financial consultant with Fidelity Investments, and I'm one of many advisors accessible to the employees of UVA as part of your benefits package with the organization. Fidelity, TIAA, CREF, and also the Virginia Retirement System have advisors available to you to answer a number of questions, both related to your retirement plans that you have through the institution and also on personal investing matters as well. In addition to helping people ensure that they are on track for retirement and that they're maximizing their retirement benefits and understanding what they are, we also help people with budgeting, with debt management. We help them with 529 type savings accounts there, even just general personal investing accounts. So we want you to know there are a number of services available to you. And again, we're all fully licensed financial advisors. So even if you have a personal financial advisor outside that you pay for, you can still utilize our services as well. The benefit is that we are not commission-based representatives. We can give you an honest opinion on everything inside of your account there. And again, there's no fees to meet with us either. So it really is a great benefit through your employer to be able to utilize these types of services there and get free financial planning and guidance. There's a couple of different things that I want to go over today. One of them you all probably saw on the sheet when you signed up for this was making the most of your retirement savings. But before we get into that, one change I do want to mention that is impacting Fidelity and particularly all of the HSA and FSA and dependent care accounts that you all have is that Fidelity is going to be the new administrator for those plans specifically. And again, I'm speaking of the HSA, the FSA, and the dependent care plan that you have through Shard Snyder. So a couple of quick notes on that. If you're an individual that has one of those or is going to have one of those come 2023, just know that when you enroll in your benefits, you'll want to be sure that after you finish that enrollment to go to your Workday inbox. And when you get there, go ahead and click on the inbox and you'll see a terms and conditions you have to click on and agree to. That's going to set your new account up at Fidelity. It's going to automatically send you out a debit card that you'll get before the year end. And that will establish that account. All new contributions moving forward will go into that new HSA plan with Fidelity. Now, for any of you that have an HSA account, as you're all probably aware, you can roll funds over each year in an HSA to compound and grow those for the course of the long run and use them at a later time frame or maybe in time in retirement there for retirement expenses or healthcare expenses in retirement specifically. If you have funds at Shard Snyder, UVA is working to facilitate a bulk transfer for everyone that has those old accounts with Shard Snyder still. After enrollment, you'll begin receiving emails about that, giving the opportunity to opt into that plan so you can transfer it over if you want to have all of the assets in a single HSA account at Fidelity. So more information to come on those after open enrollment ends, and we'll be sure to get that out to you in a timely manner and for you to have the opportunity to opt in. That is correct. Those are two different steps. You do have to go to the Workday inbox to accept the terms and conditions for the new HSA that you have. And then completely after the open enrollment session, you'll begin getting emails from UVA to talk about the bulk transfer. So great question. Excellent. So getting into our presentation today, making the most of your retirement savings plan. I work with individuals on a daily basis, generally face-to-face, and I work with 6 or 8 people normally per day. And the most common questions we get are, how do my retirement plans work? How much do I need to be saving inside of these accounts there? How do I maximize those types of benefits? And what do I need to be thinking about in terms of retirement savings? We're going to answer some of those questions today and get in some of the specifics of things you want to be thinking about to making sure that you're setting yourself up for success when it comes down to retirement. So a few things we have here that we're going to go over. Number one, how much is enough? A really common question I get is, what's the dollar amount that I need to have in terms of retirement? We're going to talk about some general figures in terms of that today. We'll talk about strategies to save more, the different types of accounts that you have accessible to you, and some of the benefits of those accounts as well. And then we'll talk about ways to preserve and grow that savings as well, specifically about the investing inside of the account and the importance of that as well. So there's several different factors that you want to consider when it comes down to your retirement savings. The healthcare costs, longer lifespans, long-term planning considerations, inflationary effects, that's a big one these days, and your day-to-day expenses and how they impact as well. Let's talk a little bit about these, break them down just a little bit further, and talk about why they're important as well. So first off, a lot of individuals are shocked to find out that the healthcare expenses are what they are in terms of retirement. For a single individual retiring at age 65, it's estimated roughly to be $489 per month is what they will pay for the premiums they have in terms of healthcare, as well as any supplementals they need to purchase and additionals for just an average individual with a normal health. For a couple retiring at age 65 again, it's roughly $978 a month. Now, I want you to know that these aren't exact figures. These are averaging out the cost over the course of your life. So it's probably a little bit lower, younger on, and then as you get older, it'll be actually above these numbers. This is an average figure over the course of your life. But these are large amounts. And I know I mentioned the HSA earlier. We're going to talk about it a little bit later on. This is one of the reasons that people generally don't use their HSAs on a regular basis until they retire. It's because they can invest that money and let it grow and compound to help offset some of these numbers ultimately. If you're looking at a married couple retiring at age 65 and living until normal lifespans, you'll find that the average amount of out-of-pocket expenses for them when it comes down to healthcare costs rivals just about $300,000 over the course of their entire lifespans. And that's not including long-term care figures. It's a big number these days, and it's not looking to get any smaller anytime sooner. So a big consideration is the healthcare cost. You want to put some thought into that about where your health is and what that might look like, and find ways to plan around those types of things. I mentioned here just in the last one there, but lifespans are longer and longer. For a married couple, at 65 right now, there is a 1 in 4 chance that one of the two of you will make it until 99, believe it or not. A lot of people are shocked to find those figures, and granted, this is a 1 in 4 chance, right? The 50% chance, though, is still in the low to mid-90s. People are surprised about those types of figures there. So if you think about that, someone retiring at 65 years old, it's 30 plus years of income that they need to be able to reproduce. It's a long time frame, right? And over the course of 30 years, there's a lot of different things that can happen there that can impact that. There's health concerns. There's things that might happen at your house that might impact you financially speaking. There's all types of life events and even stock market events that might impact your ability to be able to do that. You need to think about those things early on. And we do have a tool that I'm going to showcase here towards the end of this that helps you put these together and helps you figure out, based upon your longevity factors and what you're saving and what you intend to spend in retirement, how those figures play out and what you're on track for as far as income and retirement. So I will show you that here in a little bit, but you want to take into consideration your longevity over the course of the long run and how that might impact your ability to be able to cover your expenses when it comes down to retirement. Now, long-term planning here, this goes hand in hand with the other one there, but again, 30 years overall on average, I would say, in terms of income and expenses that you need to be able to reproduce on a regular basis when it comes down to retirement. It's a long time frame. You do need to shift investments as you approach that time frame there to account for the fact that you'll shift from asset accumulation to distribution in retirement. That landscape has changed over the past 20 or 30 years. You can't be quite as conservative as you used to be because the conservative investments don't return as much as they used to, right? So when you think about that, people these days in retirement are a little bit more concerned about that because they're taking a higher level of risk going into retirement, but they have to. They have to be able to get a return that makes up for some of the distributions they're taking from the retirement account, and you can't get that in most ultra-conservative types of investments these days. So the longevity factor in retirement impacts how you want to invest those funds and also your withdrawal rate, which I'm going to talk about in just a couple of minutes. That'll impact how you want to invest those and what that looks like for the long run. I mentioned this earlier, but inflation is a major concern. Of the appointments that I'm having these days, at least 1 or 2 a day are coming in with concerns about the rate of inflation, the general cost of rising goods on a regular basis. And more specifically, people that are coming in that have cash on the sidelines at this point. So if you look at this, let's say you have money in a checking or savings account. If you had $50,000 in there and the rate of inflation is 2.5%, 25 years from now, that $50,000 will buy about $26,500 in goods. At 4% rate of inflation, it buys about $20,000 in goods. So over a 50% loss at a 4% rate of inflation over the course of 25 years. The inflationary rates that we're at today are much, much higher. They've just recently gone down to, I believe, 8.3% is the last figure I looked at. But figure that, again, if you've got, for simple math, $10,000 in a checking or savings account and the rate of inflation is roughly 10% for that year, beginning the following year after that, if that money hasn't grown at all, it buys $1,000 less. You lose $1,000 in buying power every year close to it if you had $10,000 in a savings account, just based upon what the rates are these days. Now, certainly they'll hopefully go down, right? We could be looking at stagflation. That could be a concern there. We've seen that in the past as well. But that being said, it's more important now than ever to make sure that you're investing these funds, because if you're sitting in cash, they're getting eaten up by inflation at a fairly rapid rate. So if you have funds on the sideline at this point, you've been considering investing while the market is low, while things are cheap out there, it's a great time to consider taking some of those funds and dollar cost averaging them into the market and trying to keep up or beat the rate of inflation currently to make sure you're not losing out on your buying power over the course of the long run. And this is the same with retirement savings. I've been speaking about personal investing accounts here. If those of you have, retirement savings accounts who've been in more conservative positions, money markets or even fixed income types of positions there are investment opportunities available through the UVA plan, which is a reasonably robust set of investments that allow you to get a fairly conservative rate of return inside of there. So we can help you customize that, figure out what your return level might be based upon your comfort level with risk inside the portfolio, and help you combat some of the things like inflation over the course of the long run with your portfolio. Now, in addition to inflation impacting your portfolio as well, when you actually get into retirement, one of the other major factors here are your withdrawal rate. So on average, if someone has a portfolio of investments and wants that to last for a normal lifespan, you can generally withdraw somewhere around 4 to 5% of those assets on an annual basis in retirement. If you begin to exceed these numbers, you take a substantial amount more risk to be subject to completely running out of money prior to retirement if the stock market does not perform in line with historical averages or performs below historical averages as well. So, some of the sources of income that you all have at retirement will be guaranteed, right? You're going to have your Social Security. You very well may have your pensions. Some of you might have other sources of, semi-guaranteed income, say rental properties, things along those lines. Those are consistent sources and will probably continue on at their similar rates for the rest of your life. That being said, the other accounts that you have, your 403Bs, your 401Ks, your 401A, your 457, any IRAs you might have, personal investing accounts, those are finite amounts. And if you're taking money out of those accounts at rates that exceed 4 or 5%, there's a pretty fair chance that you may end up depleting those accounts prior to your longevity factor ages there. So you want to look into this, and the earlier you can start planning to assess what your withdrawal figures need to be to meet your income needs, the more we can help you figure out a strategy when it comes down to retirement income to meet those. I do want to mention there's also different types of products out there where if you're the type of individual that maybe doesn't have enough income, guaranteed income to cover your essential expenses, but you have a large amount of IRA and 403B type products out there, you can take a portion of those funds as well and look into different types of products that will give you guaranteed income for the rest of your life. And the reason I say that is that as financial planners, what we want to see is we want your essential expenses in retirement to be covered by guaranteed income. We want to make sure that you're always able to pay the mortgage. You're always able to pay those, essential health care bills out there, the car notes, and be able to get food and get by there ultimately. If we can cover those with essential guaranteed income in retirement there, you ultimately never run out of money, right? There could be a time when you may not be able to take the vacation you want to. You might have to cut back a little bit here and there. But if we can cover those essential expenses with guaranteed income, it provides you certain assurances, and most people are able to sleep a little bit better at night. So again, essential expenses covered by guaranteed income. Discretionary expenses, that's more what we want to cover with 403B assets there, because they do tend to fluctuate. But 4 to 5% is what you want to focus on there. That is a sustainable withdrawal rate these days based upon current figures. So one of the most common question that I get in terms of my retirement presentations are, how much do I need to have saved in terms of retirement? And I always think about the commercial I've seen in the past where they have an individual walking around and they've got a bubble above their head with a certain amount out there. For some reason, a lot of people seem to have $1 million in their mind. I need to have $1 million. That's my retirement figure. They might have something in their mind they want to have. And the truth of that is that it differs based upon everyone's specific situation. On average, most individuals need to have somewhere around 10 times their final salary saved to be able to get by. So for someone making $50,000 a year, roughly $500,000 is the appropriate amount if you're going to retire at normal ages and live until normal ages, and if you need to reproduce a normal level of income when it comes down to retirement. There are certain things that can impact that, and one of the big ones is your guaranteed income. So I know a lot of people here at UVA might have VRS plans out there where they could be in VRS Plan 1, VRS Plan 2, or even the hybrid plan, which again has a pension type component. Those pensions, your income from other sources, maybe pensions from other jobs, even your income from your real estate, if you have rental properties, that reduces the amount that you need to have in terms of your overall savings and your 403Bs and your IRAs. But in general, for someone that doesn't have those types of things, that is really just saving inside of defined contribution type plans, 10 times your salary is roughly the amount that you need to have. Looking at that, there are different target amounts that you want to have based upon your age. So if you're in that bracket and you're thinking, well, okay, I need to have 10 times by the time I retire, but how much do I need to have now? On the screen right now, it gives you a general idea of what those figures look like. So by the time you're 30, it's roughly 1 time your salary that you want to have saved. By the time you're 50, it's roughly 6 times. And again, by the time you're 67, roughly it's 10 times. Now, not everyone is hitting these figures, especially at the earlier ages. We realize it's very difficult to get up to 1 time your salary at 30 if you just started a year or two ago. But that being said, you can adjust the contributions into the retirement plans that you have through UVA anytime that you'd like to. So if you look at these and you feel like you might be a little bit behind, that might be a good reason to look into your budget, figure out what you have and what you might be able to spend on your retirement plan, and pay yourself first in times of these types of accounts. The younger you are, the more of an impact it has in increasing your contribution to your retirement savings plan over the course of the long run. So think about the 10 times rule and what your income might look like in retirement. Get a general idea. And if you're not certain if you're on track based upon all the sources, it's a great reason to set an appointment up with ourselves or with TIAA or the VRS, depending upon who you have your retirement plans with. We can look in and give you a more clear picture of the specifics of your situation. So you want to think about those types of things and then let us put the pieces of the puzzle together for you. Now, how can I save more for the future? So there's a couple of different ways that you can save more in terms of different types of accounts out there, and there's different benefits for each of those accounts as well. I want to talk a little bit about those benefits and what they look like. So first off, you have your workplace savings plans. We're going to talk about that in just a minute here. You have personal accounts, IRAs, you have HSAs, and then you also, if you're maxing out those other accounts, there's also opportunities for deferred annuities for people that really want to get aggressive with their savings rates. Starting with the most common one, you all are probably familiar with this one, is your workplace savings plan. So all of you have access to plans through UVA, whether it's the medical center retirement plan or maybe you're in the VRS plan at this point. You all have supplemental plans available to you through UVA. Now, the supplemental plans are either a 403B or a 457 account. The 403B is either through Fidelity or TIAA CREF. The 457 is through VRS, or I believe Mission Square at this point. And with those plans, you have the ability to contribute up to the IRS annual limits. Those have changed just as of recently here. I'm going to talk about those in just a minute, but I do want you to know that you have the ability to adjust the contributions into those plans anytime. You can either do pre-tax contributions or you can make a Roth contribution into those plans, and that's changed directly through Workday. Now, when you're targeting a specific amount, the last slide I mentioned that about 10 times your salary is the goal by the time you retire. To be able to have that amount by the time that you retire, the goal savings rate is about 15%. Now, that's between you and the employer. So you want to figure, if you're on the medical side of things there, UVA is putting 4% in the medical center retirement plan. And then if you contribute to the 403B at least 4%, they match you an additional 2%. So they're putting in 6% overall to your retirement plans. You'd want to figure about 9% in contributions on your own that would put you right at 15%. And again, if you're starting off, if you're 25 years old or so, that's the amount you want to target right now to make sure that you have that 10 times your salary. Now, if you're 35 or 40 or even older than that for that matter, and you're right at the figures that I mentioned earlier, you're probably on track and the 15% figure is okay. But if you're below those, that might be a good reason, again, to set up an appointment so we can run the analysis and figure out where you are and help you figure out what your actual contribution rate might be. But in general, the industry standard is about 15%, give or take a little bit, depending upon when you intend to retire and where you currently are in terms of your retirement savings overall. Now, in terms of contribution limits, these are the 2022 contribution limits. They are going up for 2023. For those individuals under the age of 50 in 2022, you have the ability to contribute up to $20,500 per year, either into the 403B or the 457 plan, or both for that matter if you'd like to. If you'd like to be an aggressive saver, you have the ability to utilize both plans up to the IRS maximums. If you are turning 50 in this year or are over 50, the IRS allows you to do a catch-up contribution. A catch-up contribution for 2022 is $6,500. So if you are turning 50 or over 50 this year, you can do a total of $27,000 inside of the retirement plan that you have here. And that's above and beyond the contributions that are made into the other plans by UVA. This is for the employee contributions only. Now, this year, in terms of the contribution limits, the UVA contributions do not play into what your limit is on an annual basis. So this is solely for your contributions, the limit we're looking at right now.
So that would be VRS, and then some portion of UVA?
And can you clarify that in terms of what you can put in, or?
Right. In other words, I'm just trying to determine the 27,000
Mm-hmm.
max.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody 50 and over.
Mm-hmm.
That would apply to VRS.
Okay. So the 403B, you can contribute the max to that. You can also contribute the max into the 457 plan. The VRS plan does not play into that. Yeah, completely separate. So good clarification. Thank you. Thank you. Now, for the 2023 year, these limits are going up. They just announced them recently, so you don't have them in here at the moment. For individuals under the age of 50, it's additional $2,000, so $22,500 is what you can put in for the 2023 year. And the catch-up contribution is also going up by $1,000. So if you are turning 50 in 2023 or over 50, you can put in a total of $30,000 into the 403B and an additional $30,000 into the other plan as well, your 457 plan too. So increased contribution limits by the IRS for the 2023 tax year, which is wonderful. In addition to these plans, there are also different types of retirement plans that you guys have access to that are outside of UVA. You can do them anywhere. Fidelity is one of the leading providers of these accounts, but I'm speaking specifically of IRAs, also known as individual retirement accounts. These accounts allow you to save either pre-tax or Roth dollars. There are both traditional and Roth IRAs out there. The limit is $6,000 for 2022 for anybody under 50. For anyone turning 50 or over 50, it is an additional $1,000, which is $7,000. I'm not certain at this point if those are increasing for the 2023 year. I would assume they likely are, but I have yet to see those figures. But if you've saved inside of the UVA plans and you'd like to invest outside of those, maybe for additional, flexibility in terms of, the investment structure, or just to do something outside of those plans, you do have the ability to contribute into the non-workplace sponsored retirement plans as well. Now, one thing that I want to mention here, it's very important, is that there are income limits on how much you can earn and still contribute to these types of accounts. So they're relatively low. I believe for a married individual filing jointly, it's only $107,000 or $108,000 for your modified adjusted gross income before you lose the ability for the tax break on a traditional IRA. So if you're over that income limit married filing jointly, traditional IRA doesn't make a whole lot of sense at all unless you're completely maximizing the plans that you have through UVA. And I say that because your 403Bs and your 457s do not have an income limit. Regardless of your income, you still get the tax benefits inside of those. With personal accounts IRAs, there are the income limits on those. Now, one thing I want to mention is, did we lose the screen here? Okay. One thing I do want to mention is that with Roth IRAs, the income limit is much, much higher. I believe it's $207,000 for joint income before you lose the ability to contribute directly to a Roth IRA. Roth IRAs are a very attractive option for especially individuals that are younger at this point. The longer you have until retirement, the more attractive that is. And the real benefit inside of that account is tax-free investment returns for life. So if you're looking at someone who's, let's say, 25 years old right now and might be retiring at 65, if they're investing inside of a portfolio and getting an average rate of return, roughly 68% of their portfolio at retirement will be investment returns. If they'd contributed that money into a retirement account, when you look at that, that's completely tax-free on the 68%. The other 32% that they contributed into the account are the taxes they would have paid up front in order to make that contribution to the plan. So with a Roth IRA, the younger you are, the further away you are from retirement, the more it makes sense. Even for individuals approaching or in retirement at that time frame, I want you to know that you still have the ability to contribute into a Roth IRA. For people that don't intend to use these assets or maybe want to create an account for legacy, a Roth IRA is a great way to do that. You don't have to take minimum required distributions out of a Roth IRA. With all of your other traditional assets, when you reach the age of 72, the IRS is going to require you to start taking money out of those accounts. And the reason behind that is that they've given you a tax break on those funds your entire life. When you reach age 72, the IRS states that you have to begin taking funds out of your pre-tax retirement accounts and paying your federal and state taxes on those funds. They want their taxes at that point, ultimately. With a Roth IRA, you don't have minimum required distribution, so it's a great opportunity, again, if you're not intending to use those assets or if you don't want to take minimum required distributions, or again, you just want to create an account for legacy over the course of the long run. So a very attractive option there. I do want to mention briefly that for anybody in that's interested in a Roth IRA but is over the income limits, there are still ways to get money into a Roth IRA. It's a more advanced strategy we're not going to talk about in detail today, but if that's something you're curious about and you're over those income limits, great reason to set an appointment up with myself or TIAA or possibly the VRS as well. Talk to them about how that works and what it looks like, and we can help you out with that and make sure that you're maximizing the benefits inside of those plans. So IRA is, again, a great way to get $6,000 or $7,000 additional dollars into retirement plans, be able to invest those any way you want to, stocks, bonds, mutual funds there, and increase the retirement savings overall. Now, health savings accounts are a hot topic these days as well. As I just mentioned earlier, the new health savings accounts through UVA will be with Fidelity. These are some of the best tax-advantaged accounts that you can get. If you are in the basic health plan with UVA or opting for that in 2023 moving forward, I want you to know that the HSA is a wonderful tax benefit. And what I mean by that is that the money that you put into an HSA, you put in before taxes. You're effectively getting a tax break on that money right now. Lowers your current taxable income, which is wonderful. You have the ability to invest the money inside of that HSA while it's there. And while it invests and ideally grows money, you want to know that the investment earnings inside of that account are tax-free as well. You can buy and sell investments, not have to worry about the taxable income that those investments might throw off. Additionally, if you use that HSA for qualified medical expenses, and they're pretty flexible as to what they consider that, it comes out tax-free on the back end. So you get a tax break up front, you get tax-free investment returns, and tax-free withdrawals on the back end. Triple tax benefits on an HSA. It's one of the best ways to save in terms of retirement. And I do want you to know the money you put into an HSA is not a use it or lose it. That's the flex spending account. If you're opting for any other health care plans above the basic plan, you have access to a flex spending account, which again is a use it or lose it. But specifically with the HSAs, you have the ability to roll that money over on an annual basis. So there's two different ways to look at that in terms of opportunity for you. Number one, if you're the type of person that needs that money now or wants to pay your medical expenses now, wonderful. You can go ahead and utilize that HSA on a regular basis there annually and deplete that down to whatever you want it to be. For those of you that can pay that money out of pocket otherwise without using the HSA, you can leave the money to compound and grow inside of there, invest it, and then use that in retirement for your medical expenses to cover the roughly $300,000 we mentioned that people that are married filing jointly at 65 are going to need throughout the course of their life. So it really is a great benefit if you can pay your medical expenses now out of pocket to let this account continue to compound and grow, try to keep up with those increasing rates of cost with regards to inflation. It is a wonderful benefit. Now, these are the 2022 limits that you see here in front of you for the HSA. I do want you to know that these are going up as well. It's for self-only coverage, it is $38.50, so it's a $200 increase. And then for the family coverage, it's I believe it's $77.50, or excuse me, $78.50. It's $450 increase. on the year. So again, $38.50 and $78.50 are the contribution limits for the HSA for 2023. If you are 55 or over for the 2023 year, there is an additional catch-up contribution of $1,000 as well into that plan too. I do want to mention here that for those of you in the basic plan that will have access to the HSA, UVA also provides a contribution to that plan for you as well. If you are a single individual in the HSA plan, it's $1,000 they put into the account for you. If you are an individual with a spouse or children on that plan as well, they put $1,500 into that account for you. One thing that's important to note, the money that UVA puts in for you does reduce what you're able to put in on an annual basis. So again, for a self-only individual, $38.50 for the year, they would get $1,000 from UVA, and so it would only be $28.50 that they would have the ability to contribute for the 2023 tax year into this plan, again, for an individual under the age of 55. So really, really great benefits for the HSA plan. If you have access to that plan and if you can afford to put the money in there, there's no advisor out there that won't tell you that's a wonderful benefit, whether you're going to use it now or if you have the ability to let that compound and grow. It is one of the best benefits you can get in terms of retirement savings here. And lastly, for individuals that are aggressive savers, you've maxed out the 403B, you've utilized the 457 plan, you've got your IRA or backdoor Roth IRA set up at this point, you've got your HSA or FSA set up inside of UVA as well, and you still have additional funds that you want to contribute. Deferred annuities are a great way to save on taxes, specifically tax deferral of the investment returns. At higher income specifically, we know that tends to be a big concern, is that the income that your portfolio might throw off in a taxable brokerage account could be substantial, could even push you into the next tax bracket out there. Deferred annuities give you the ability to contribute into those plans. They're unlimited in terms of contributions amount. You get to defer the income from the investments you have inside of that plan as well, and then set yourself up a withdrawal strategy for retirement. So a number of different options out there for deferred annuities if you're maximizing the other plans that you have out there and still want to be able to save more and get yourself some level of tax benefit inside of those accounts as well. So a great opportunity there too.
Annuities, generally speaking, have, in some cases, a bad reputation as having a lot of kind of fees associated with them. Can you just talk a little bit about your perspective on that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's different types of annuities out there. Some of them are more costly and some are less. With every type of annuity, there's going to be some type of fee structure associated with the cost to set those up. And ultimately, an annuity to some degree is transferring risk away from you into an insurance company. So there's a type like that, and then there's a retirement type of annuity as well. And those types of annuities, depending upon how you structure them, may or may not have substantial fees out there. My best advice in those types of things, and it's tough to speak to because they're all so different in terms of the way you can structure them, but I would get quotes from multiple different companies out there if you're going to go with an annuity. And look at different types as well. If you're looking to do it specifically for retirement, there's ways to customize the annuities to your specifics, and there are lower cost types of annuities or very low costs that are out there available. What I find is that in a lot of the ones that are designed specifically for retirement, they do tend to be the lower cost annuities out there. And I'm speaking of for individuals that are using these types of deferred annuities for the course of the long run there just for the tax benefit. And what they find is that the tax break that they're getting on the buying and selling investments outweighs any cost they might be paying inside of those types of annuities, generally speaking. It's not always the truth, obviously. You know, you could have tax losses inside of the annuity as well if things don't go well. So when you look at that, you know, it doesn't always add up. But for the most part, those are beneficial accounts there. So, yeah. So how can I preserve and help grow my savings? And there's a couple of different ways to do this. We've already chatted about several of them here, and I've skipped those slides ultimately for simplicity's sake. But number one, increasing your contribution savings if you have the ability to do that. The best way to improve the amount you're going to have for retirement is to put more into the account there, especially while the time is ripe. And I think most advisors out there are probably going to tell you it's an attractive time to get into the market with where it is right now. Even if we have a little bit more downturn to go, we've seen major fluctuations since the beginning of the year here. It is a great opportunity opportunity for investing moving forward there as well. So increased savings. The other part is going to be investment structure. And this one's really important because I do find that people tend to overlook the importance of making sure that your assets are invested over the course of the long run there. And going back to my example that I used earlier, again, for a 25-year-old who might be looking to work 40 years there and gets an average rate of return, about 68% of their portfolio at retirement is the investment returns. For an individual that might look at that and say, well, I'm a more conservative investor, I'm just going to go with a money market, I'd rather just kind of keep the principal of my funds there. Over the course of their life, you're going to think that individual is giving up about 68% of what their balance could be at retirement there by going with the ultra-conservative type of investment. So if you haven't, over the past couple of years, reviewed how you're investing those funds or where that is in terms of being on track for you as far as retirement goes, it's a great way to spark something inside of you to come in and set an appointment up and go over those with the advisory firm that you're currently working with. There are a number of different options available through the UVA plans, whether you're a hands-on or a hands-off investor. It's one of the things I love about their plans. They cater to everyone. The numbers tell us that the huge majority of you are hands-off investors. You either don't have the time or don't feel like you have the know-how to set up and manage a portfolio on your own. So there are investments available through the plan called target date funds. And those mutual funds automatically diversify your assets and they change up the risk level based upon your estimated time frame for retirement. So for someone that doesn't have the time or the knowledge to come in and set up their own portfolio of investments, you can elect a target date fund based upon when you intend to retire. And for the most part, it is a set it and forget it type of investment. You want to come in on a relatively, let's say annual basis and review that target date fund, just see how it's performing, see if you think any adjustments need to be made. But it's a great way if you don't have the time, or maybe if you set a portfolio up in the past but you haven't been keeping up with it, you can still elect a target date fund inside of your account there. And these are available through all the providers, whether you're with Fidelity or TIAA or the VRS 457 plan, you have access to target date funds inside of those accounts. For those of you that are hands-on investors, for the smaller percentage of you overall, all the accounts, Fidelity, TIAA, and the VRS have a list of good investments available inside of those plans you can set up a well-diversified portfolio with. And there are some unique benefits to workplace-sponsored plans compared to an IRA or a personal investing account. And the biggest one is institutional investments. So UVA being as big as it is, when they put a mutual fund inside of their retirement account, they effectively get a bulk discount on the expense ratio for that mutual fund. So figure that every mutual fund out there has a cost associated with running that, and that cost is built into what's called an expense ratio. They get discounts on the expense ratio, which is ultimately passed on to the employees, all of yourselves. So those plans that you have through UVA and the investments inside of them, a lot of them are institutional investments that have lower expense ratios than the exact same mutual fund would have inside of a personal account. So you want to think about those types of things. You want to review the investment structure. You want to review your contributions into these types of plans. Make sure that you're putting in what you need to and that you're investing so that you're keeping up not only with the rate of inflation, but also beating that as well and growing that account for the course of the long run. It's very, very difficult to be able to retire or have a successful retirement plan without an investment structure that supports that. So more so now than ever, it's very important to review the investment structure. So a few things, just to recap here that I want you to know. Roughly 10 times your salary is the goal in terms of the retirement savings amount. You want to maximize your workplace savings plans first because there are wonderful benefits, high contribution limits, great sets of investments available through the plan there that are low cost and reasonably high performing. Explore additional retirement savings opportunities out there following that. Look at the HSA account, look at IRAs if you're eligible for them, and then different types of savings, whether that's a taxable brokerage or if you decide you want to go with a tax-deferred annuity, that is a great option. And most importantly, too, I want to mention to stay on track. Regardless of where you are, whether it's your very first day of saving with UVA or whether you're getting ready to retire here in the near term, know that the advisors that UVA has available to you can be a value add in terms of your situation as far as helping you fine-tune this, figure out what you need to change in order to be on track there, or just making base level adjustments inside of the plans to make sure that you're on track as far as retirement goes. So wonderful benefits there. One thing I do want to mention is make sure to go to the retirement provider that you have your accounts through. Occasionally, I'm with Fidelity. I might have someone who has TIAA set an appointment up with me. I don't have the ability to see those accounts, just like TIAAs can't see ours, and neither of us can see VRSs. So if you have a retirement account specifically with TIAA or specifically with Fidelity, set the appointment up with that advisory team. And on the screen here is a couple of different ways to do that. If you go to netbenefits.com/UVA, there is a Meet With Us button on the right-hand side. You can click on that, and you can schedule an appointment with Nathan or myself. We also have, in addition to Nathan and myself, which are the UVA dedicated reps per se, we have a team of advisors that works over the phone. And they work from 8 a.m. until 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. They do not require appointments. So you can also call them any given time and speak about all the same things that Nathan and I are speaking with, and they can set up your retirement plan in that manner as well. We also have an app. I want to mention that here too. Net Benefits is called the app. You can log in there. You can see your account balances. You can make adjustments. Any changes you need to make there are available through the app as well. So that concludes the presentation for today. I'll go ahead and open it up for questions anyone might have out there. Feel free to go ahead and submit those. And while we're waiting on those, one other thing that I might be able to show here as well, if that's going to show up, give me 1 second here. So this is a hypothetical account. It's not anyone's account here. Theta is not a real organization. It is a hypothetical organization. It is the Fidelity training type region here. What I want to showcase is a tool that both Fidelity and TIA has this. I believe the VRS does as well. It's a retirement income planning tool. So a lot of the things we talked about today, it's kind of convoluted in terms of the landscape, right? There's a number of different things that you're trying to put together to figure out where I am in terms of being on track. We all have a tool available that can assess those types of figures for you. So this is what it would look like in your Fidelity Net Benefits if you happen to log in with us. If you go to the Plan and Learn button here at the top and then click on the Planning and Guidance Center, click on Plan for Retirement right here. So this is our Planning and Guidance Center retirement income planning tool. What this tool does, it looks into what you're currently saving, what UVA might be saving for you as well, your different sources of income, whether again that's a rental property or a pension from an old job or whatever it might be in terms of retirement, work and retirement. It looks into how you invest your money, how much you have, when you intend to retire, how long you intend to live. And what it does, it takes all the pieces of the puzzle and puts them together. And it's estimating out what it thinks you need in terms of retirement income, and it's comparing that to what it thinks you're actually on track to be able to reproduce with all your different sources. And it takes all the factors that we mentioned today into consideration for you on an automated basis. To look through this, and I'm just going to click through briefly, you'll enter in some basic information about yourself, when you're going to retire. It'll automatically put longevity factors in there based upon your age and what the actuaries figure for you. You have the ability to enter in your salary. They figure out what your income needs are based upon that. And to provide that briefly as well, on average, most people that retire in the U.S. tend to retire and live off of 85% of what their rough final salary was. So this tool takes your current income, it figures in rough pay increases between now and when you're going to retire, takes 85% of that amount, and it breaks it down on a monthly basis. So this will figure out roughly what it thinks you need in terms of retirement. If you're within 5 years of retirement, the tool will ask you to enter in your budget, and it'll estimate using your specific numbers there as well. When you run the retirement analysis here, you can add in outside accounts too, I want you to know. So if you have retirement accounts outside of Fidelity, you can go ahead and add those into account for those as well, as they certainly impact it. And Click View Analysis will run that. So the What You Might Need section, this is roughly 85% of your salary based upon the average figures here that the tool figures out. And then the What You Might Have section is looking into all your different sources of income and playing out what's called a Monte Carlo simulation. It's a statistical model that uses all the historical data of the stock market to try to predict out what the probability is of you having different sources of income when it comes down to retirement. So when we look at this one, this is the below average. It's going to compress those thousands of stock market scenarios it's playing out into 3 different situations: below average, average, and significantly below average. The first one it's going to show you is going to be always significantly below average, and that's because as financial planners, we're trained to plan for the worst case scenario out there. You can also adjust that over the below average, the average, to try and figure out what impact that has on your retirement. So figure that the average, roughly half the time historically speaking, it's been better, half the time it's been worse. This one could be a little bit of a gamble to plan your retirement on, but this individual specifically would be on track to be able to retire when they want to at 67 and live to normal ages and reproduce the level of income they need if the stock market does average. Now, if the market does any less than that, let's say below average, they're shy about $1,800 a month is what it tells us if the market doesn't perform up to what it has historically speaking. So in this individual situation, they might look in and say, well, how do I save a little bit more and improve this? And then you go through other things we talked about earlier, which would be the investing or contribution increases, and you can model those types of things out here. So if you come down, you can look at your accounts and contributions, And you could change here, let's say this individual is currently contributing $5,400 into their Theta savings plan. If they come in here and say, well, hypothetically speaking, what if I increase this from 3 to 6% and save that? You can see that the tool automatically updated here, and that change increased the amount they had in terms of retirement. So you can come in and model the different changes you're thinking about making and seeing where that puts you in terms of being on track. Now, even though you all have access to this, I do want you to know that the tool is relatively complex. The first time you go through it, probably worthwhile to set an appointment up with us. Let us go through this for you there. We'll set up all the basics in there, and then you can come in and make adjustments on your own on a regular basis. But it is a wonderful tool to be able to figure out where you are in terms of being on track. And the earlier you can start running this tool, the more impact the changes you have are going to have on what you ultimately have. So the further away you are from retirement, the more attractive this is. Excellent. Any questions at all from the chat, or no? Absolutely. That concludes the presentation today. I do appreciate it, and we'll look forward to seeing you all soon in appointments. So thank you very much.